Inside the Magic, show number 387 for September 3rd, 2012. It is Monday, September 3rd, 2012. This is show 387 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I'm your host, Ricky Briganti. Got another great show packed with plenty of Disney and theme park news and a whole lot more fun. And before we get to all of it, I invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and plenty more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, anything you want to send in, you can always email me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Receive a free shipboard credit when you book your Disney cruise vacation with Magical Travel. Shipboard credits are good towards merchandise, spa treatments, shore excursions, and more. So you're going to want to call Magical Travel today to take advantage of all of that at 866-207-8387, or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote. And be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And of course, thank you very much to listeners and viewers like you for your donations, one-time donations, monthly, recurring, whatever you send in, even clicking through the affiliate links on the website. It all goes back to support this very show, and I thank you very much for all of that. And now, let's get started with our trip around the world. Lots of fun news to get to this week. It's actually been a pretty busy week in the world of theme parks. But before we jump into all of that, I have two things to say. First, of course, I'm recording this on Monday, actually very late Monday night. It's actually technically Tuesday my time, Eastern time, but it's still Monday West Coast time in various parts of the world. So we'll stick with the Monday date for this. That aside, the reason I'm recording this late is because I decided to get away for the past few days. My wife and I went on a quick Bahamas cruise on Royal Caribbean, actually not on the Disney Cruise Line. It was good to have a sort of non-Disney vacation for once, a little bit of an escape from all the usual Disney fun. Of course, Disney Cruise Line, fantastic. I really enjoyed my time on the Disney Dream and the Disney Fantasy, but it was good to have a little bit of a change of pace, and I'll be even more looking forward to getting back on the Aqueduct eventually. Fortunately, I didn't actually spot the Dream or the Fantasy while I was out there. I would have been very, very jealous in seeing them, but I didn't see them. So anyway, had a good time, and I'm back, relaxed, refreshed, ready to continue with Inside the Magic. And one more note before we continue, actually, or before we start the show, really. This week, a few days ago, if you tried to go to our website, InsideTheMagic.net, you may have noticed that the website was either really slow or just completely inaccessible for the better part of a day. And that was because we had an old article, about 2 years old now, a very small article, actually, got linked to on the very, very popular linking website Reddit. And somebody just happened to stumble across an article about river country. And if you remember, a couple of years ago, we talked about some explorers, as they called themselves, and they sort of ventured out into the old river country water park from Walt Disney World, which, of course, is not open anymore, and nobody is supposed to go there. It's completely abandoned, actually, but some people did go there, and they kind of documented their time there. Anyway, there was just a very short article on InsideTheMagic.net, kind of linking to other reports, really. But for some reason, that did get linked, and it essentially was so popular, it not only brought down the site, but it brought more traffic in a single day to our website than any other day ever in the history of InsideTheMagic.net. So that was kind of cool. But I do apologize if anyone couldn't get to the site that day. If anybody out there is now listening or watching this show as a result of that Reddit article, welcome. Hopefully you enjoy the show. Now, with all of that said, let's get to this week's Disney news, starting out here at Walt Disney World, where plenty is going on, including some, Disney first released a first look, a couple of videos, actually, inside Enchanted Tales with Belle. Seems like this is going to be the first area of New Fantasyland that's essentially going to be ready for guests. It's not open yet, but they did open it up on a special preview to cast members and guests of cast members. Now, while this happened, I was actually out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, so I didn't get to go personally myself, but the look the Disney released even before that happened was pretty stupendous. It was a spoiler color-filled glimpse inside this Enchanted Tales with Belle experience. This is an interactive meet and greet that is basically taking you inside Maurice's cottage in New Fantasyland, the Magic Kingdom, of course. And from there, you go through a magic mirror portal, and you encounter some really impressive audio animatronics figures of the wardrobe, Madame Wardrobe from Beauty and the Beast, as well as Lumiere, all introducing you into the story. And, of course, you get to see Belle herself. And the interactive portion of this, the animatronics, from what I understand and what I've seen in the video, very, very impressive animatronic figures. The interactive portion of this, kind of the meet and greet portion of this, is a little bit, and I'm being nice there, a little bit aimed at very, very young kids. Everybody that I've seen, well, almost everybody that I've seen that has gone in there really loved the way everything looked. But it's, it's early testing, and this is maybe what Disney is trying to determine from there. I spoke to somebody who actually had a chance to go through there, and she was less than impressed by the sort of childish games that were being played and marching around and taking on different roles and things like that. So, a little bit odd there, but it is early testing, so we'll see how that gets tweaked between now and the official opening of this area of New Fantasyland. Will be, November 19th is the official preview, and then December 6th will be the official opening, but it seems likely that Enchanted Tales with Belle will open sometime between now and then, probably before November 19th. So if you want to see those videos, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net and take a look inside. Also this week, over on the Disney Parks blog, Disney released a first glimpse at some concept art for Ariels Grotto. This is going to be the character greeting for Ariel in mermaid form, sitting on her seashell throne, as they put it, on the base of the seaside cliffs. It's actually separate from Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid. That's going to be the Little Mermaid ride as part of New Fantasyland. This is going to be separate from that, so you don't have to lump the two together. This will also be opening in the preview on November 19th, and then ultimately on December 6th officially. And some more rumors are suggesting that Pete's Silly Sideshow over in Storybook Circus will be soft opening as early as November 18th, or just in time for that November 19th preview day, which is not surprising there. Further rumors, and this is actually moving away from the Magic Kingdom now, there are pretty strong rumors of continuing strong rumors of Cars Land making its way in some form over to Disney's Hollywood Studios, and the latest rumor is that perhaps Lights, Motors, Action and part of the backlot area around there is going to be disappearing from the park to make way for Cars Land. Of course, that is not announced. It is just a rumor at this point, but more and more indications seem to be pointing as that. Who knows if it's something that's just, steamrolling its way and just becoming a really big rumor, or if it will actually be true. We will have to just wait and see. Over at Downtown Disney, just a quick reminder, if you're a big Phineas and Ferb fan, the sort of interactive virtual experience Phineas and Ferb and You, a brand new reality, has opened. That's on the west side of Downtown Disney out here in Orlando. So a few days ago, online on the Disney Parks blog, they hosted a live chat with Imagineer Melissa Jesselnick, who's the assistant project manager for Test Track, the Test Track 2.0 or Test Track Update over at Epcot. Of course, the attraction closed a few months ago to become this new version of the attraction. I spoke to Jesselnick when they released a lot of the concept art, and you heard the interview. Then not a whole lot more information was released during this live chat from when I did that interview. I think it was back in April, so it's been a few months now. However, there was a little bit new. They revealed a new marquee, or the big sign that's going to be out in front of the attraction. It's a very sleek sign using blues and blacks and whites. That's going to be the color scheme for the attraction now. Jesselnick continued to emphasize that the attraction will now have an emphasis on designing cars rather than testing them. So definitely a more design element. According to Jesselnick, guests will use, quote, an interactive design kiosk. So in the full experience, you can start from a line, then shape your vehicle and add attributes, pick the colors, the tires, and make it truly your dream vehicle. Everybody in the vehicle will have their ride design, whether they designed individually or as a group. As you move through the four groups, you'll see how the design stacked up against the sim car design, end quote. Not sure if that really clarifies anything, but that's how the design process will work while you're in the queue of Test Track. Now, if you go through the single rider or the fast pass queues, which both will exist in this new version, you'll have sort of a limited design experience, whereas if you go through the full queue, you'll have more time to design. We previously said that there will be 4 elements really tested on this virtual design: the capability, efficiency, responsiveness, and speed, and each of those will be directly reflected through the different scenes in the film. I actually had a chance to ask a question during this live chat online, and I asked Jesselnick basically what the balance will be between virtual scenes and real-world sets and props. And, if you look at the concept art for this new test track, it looks very Tron-like, it looks very virtual, and everybody's wondering, well, are you going to be staring at computer screens the whole time? And she responded, quote, "We talk a lot about being in the digital space, but it's still a physical experience. We're using a lot of new technology to tell the story, but it is still a dynamic physical experience." End quote. She later went on to say that it is the exact same track layout that's been there for Test Track all along. There'll be new music, new soundtrack, new special effects, and of course new visuals, but it is still a, of course, physical experience. Didn't really answer the question so much, so we don't know yet how much of the ride of course you're going to be moving around in these vehicles, but you don't know how much of it's going to be projections versus real physical elements. So we'll just have to, again, wait and see. It's all you can ever do. Until you know the information, we just wait, and it'll open up sometime later this year. She declined to offer a date other than late fall 2012, so much later this year, another few months. But much sooner than that is Halloween season, which I'm very, very excited about. And there's a lot of news coming out this week for Halloween. The first from back over at the Magic Kingdom. This one I'm actually not so thrilled about. Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, of course, very popular event year after year at the Magic Kingdom. In fact, there's already pumpkins lining Main Street USA and signs up preparing for the first Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, which is next week, if you can believe it or not. It's already Halloween season here. Well, Disney has now revealed that there's going to be a new element for Not So Scary this year. They're calling it a street jam, and it's kind of a cross between hip-hop and like this thriller-inspired dance, and it's set to Disney Channel star China Anne McClain's song Calling All the Monsters. It's going to be performed each night before the Boo to You parade, I think after the Headless Horseman, before the parade. So everybody wants to see the parade, just kind of have to sort of endure this, and if you haven't heard this song before, and I had never heard of this song prior to Disney releasing sort of this video, here's a little clip of that.
Calling all the monsters, calling all the monsters, calling all the monsters.
What's up, everyone? We're the Creeper Crew, and we want you to dance with us at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. Right now, we're going to teach you a fun new dance.
Well, we're not going to do that. So anyway, that's the Creeper Crew, as they're calling themselves. Kind of a puzzling name there. Yeah, so that's going to be something new for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. Can't say I'm entirely looking forward to that, but Not So Scary is always fun, regardless of a street jam or not. Moving on from there to much creepier Halloween activity, of course, I would naturally be talking about Halloween Horror Nights 22 over at Universal Orlando, where this week it all started with actually a mysterious phone call that I received very late one evening just a few days ago. Here's what that phone call sounded like. Certainly piqued my curiosity there. Then, the next day, I received this phone call. This was all on my cell phone, unexpectedly.
You're scared of the unknown, these creatures of the dark, and you should be.
And as promised, later that night, all indeed was revealed. That's when they had the full reveal of all of the haunted houses and scare zones and shows that would be part of Halloween Horror Nights 22 this year. And after all of that happened, I received one more mysterious phone call.
They're everywhere!
We'll look in the dark, where you least expect us. We'll
want to you down, and you won't know where to go. Nowhere is safe at Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights 22. All has been revealed.
And that was the end of the creepy calls from Universal Orlando promoting Halloween Horror Nights. Very exciting, certainly a good way to get the media involved in getting ready for their sort of debut, showing off everything that would be part or will be part of this event. And so let me run through a bit about what they did reveal. It actually was revealed on Facebook first, and then later, of course, the full Halloween Horror Nights website came up, and there will be 7 haunted houses this year at Halloween Horror Nights. This is Universal Orlando that I'm talking about, by the way. Universal Studios Hollywood has their own lineup of things. So at Universal Orlando, we're talking about The Walking Dead, Dead Inside. That's AMC's Walking Dead. Of course, a haunted house themed to that very, very popular show. This is essentially the biggest item on the spectrum for Halloween Horror Nights this year. It's what they're really promoting heavily. There is no overall sort of theme or icon this year for the first time in many years. Instead, they're promoting sort of these individual, very popular properties like The Walking Dead. In addition, there is going to be Welcome to Silent Hill, or just Silent Hill, based on the video game and the movie that already came out, and the movie that is coming out, the second movie, pretty soon. Looking forward to that one greatly as well. Another haunted house. I am a big Silent Hill fan, especially of its unique characters. Alice Cooper welcomed My Nightmare, another haunted house. Now, there was a haunted house last year at Hollywood with this same name, but I've been told that this one in Orlando this year, completely new house that they've gone from the ground up. Just because it has the same name doesn't mean it is the same house. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm sure anyone who's a fan of Alice Cooper's shock rock music will be as well. Then there's Penn and Teller nuked Las Vegas. Talked about this when it was first announced a few weeks ago, and I'm a big Penn and Teller fan, so definitely looking forward to that haunted house. Moving past those 4, however, was the bigger news of this reveal. We'd already known about those 4, and these next 3 are the sort of the Universal original houses, which in my opinion are always the best, and I have a feeling that'll be the case again this year, although those other 4 definitely a run for their money. There will be a haunted house called Gothic, and the description of that is basically a Gothic cathedral undergoing a refurbishment by day, and then by night, stone gargoyles will be coming to life, so that should be pretty exciting. Another house called Dead End is basically a haunted mansion. Not Disney's haunted mansion, of course. It's Universal's creepy haunted house, and anything haunted house, haunted mansion, that's absolutely for me. This very well may be my favorite house this year. We'll wait and see. And then Universal's House of Horrors. They've borrowed the name from the year-round haunted house that's at Universal Studios Hollywood. This one will not be year-round, but it is going to feature Universal's classic monsters, and I think they're going to be in black and white, at least in part, so that should be pretty exciting. This year, Universal Orlando is also sort of reinventing their way of doing street scares. They're not having individual scare zones, but rather sort of roaming scare areas. It's all lumped under the concept of the Legions of Horror. As they put it, they have ripped and clawed their way out of the ground from an ancient buried cemetery kept secret, and now they'll move silently throughout the night, and Universal says nowhere will be safe in the park. There's not specific zones, there's no safe areas. You could get scared anywhere. These legions include vampires, beasts, warriors, prisoners, and traditionals, as they're putting it, the fiends from childhood books, or rather in your dreams, and ghosts and goblins and all that kind of stuff. So should be pretty exciting to have nowhere safe throughout the park. We'll see how that goes. I'm absolutely looking forward to being scared out of my mind as I'm walking through the park. A new show this year is called 20 Penny Circus. And that's a magic show that apparently you can pull it up on YouTube and see some of their act from the past. And then, of course, Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure will be returning again this year as well. Now, surprisingly, there was no mention of Universal's Cinematic Spectacular Lagoon show this for Halloween, but I have a feeling they're going to be revamping this new nighttime show for the Halloween season. Of course, Halloween Horror Nights 22 begins September 21st, not too long from now, and I will be there as much as I possibly can. Now, this week, also in addition to that, Universal held a special preview for a very small number of Facebook fans who responded very quickly to a question that they had, and we've got a write-up over on InsideTheMagic.net where you can read a report from one of the fans who attended that preview and actually got to walk through a little bit of the Gothic haunted house, see some of the characters, ask some questions, so if you want to find out even more, head on over to the website. And while you're there, if you do want to see more from Universal Studios Hollywood, we have a little bit of something special from there as well. Got a preview of the Hollywood haunted house, Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. That's the second Alice Cooper house, is new for this year at Hollywood. We sent Jeremiah Dawes out there, which he is scared of haunted houses. And fortunately, this was a daytime experience with no scares, just the decorations, which it was actually still under construction. Still has a few weeks to go. So it wasn't totally done yet, but he was led through by creative director John Murdy and someone else from their creative team. And if you want to see what pictures and video inside that haunted house without the scares, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net or check that out on YouTube as well. So speaking of California, let's hop on over to Disneyland, where another report that we have up on the website is from the first ever Glow with the Show Phantasmic performance that happened a few nights ago, about a week ago actually. Inside the Magic reader DJ Chavez was there in attendance for that event. He said, he wrote to me and said, the ears did not give the show more flair. Did give the show more flair and the audience more involved into the show. It was truly a nice sight to see, but there are some points of the show where the ears didn't glow, where they should have. This is the first show of Phantasmic that Disneyland attempted. Maybe they'll make some changes down the line. I really look forward to what else Disneyland will do with these ears. Hopefully try it with a fireworks show in the future. And he sent over some pictures of the Glow with the Show ears glowing along with Phantasmic as well, so you can check those out over on the website also. A couple of offers have popped up this week for Disneyland annual pass holders, starting with the upcoming Art of Frankenweenie exhibition, which I saw at San Diego Comic-Con a couple of months ago. Great exhibit. You definitely want to go check it out at California Adventure when it arrives, but pass holders are having a chance to see it first. Beginning Thursday, September 13th. There's actually two ways. There's an exhibition dinner package that tickets are going to be going on sale. Actually, they're already on sale through September 9th. This is going to take place on Thursday, September 13th. It's not Friday the 13th, unfortunately, but close enough. From 7 p.m. to 1:30 a.m., it's $290 per ticket. But here's what you get for that. Champagne reception inside the exhibition, a 4D extended sneak peek of the film, a dining experience in front of the Tower of Terror, and what they're calling a special experience from 11:30 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. that Frankenweenie fans will surely love, as they put it. Not sure what that means. A 2-hour special experience. A big mystery there. If I was out in California, I might just have to do that because I'm a big Tim Burton fan, and Frankenweenie looks really fantastic. So if you're interested in that, visit a Disneyland Resort ticket booth or call 714-781-PASS through September 9th to buy those tickets. If you don't want to do that, you can register for an exhibition preview. Registration's open September 5th, tomorrow, or a couple of days from now, through the 10th. And that will also take place on the 13th from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. And so you just won't be able to take part in that extra special bit at the end. But you will have a chance to purchase some merchandise and food and beverage offerings and do a few other things in the park as well. So there it is, a couple of Frankenweenie bits of fun. If anyone out there has a chance to go out and experience those, definitely send me an email. Let me know how it was. Send over any photos or whatever it is that you have. Another pass holder experience coming up is over at Disney's PCH Grill at the Paradise Pier Hotel. Apparently they're working on a new menu over there, and pass holders from September 2nd, a few days ago, through the 20th have a chance to experience the first look or a first taste really at this new menu. You can call the Disneyland dining phone number or email to dine@disneyland.com. When you make a reservation there as a pass holder, you not only get to try out the new menu, but you also get a fast pass for World of Color at California Adventure. The new menu includes a variety of sort of new comfort food offerings, including roasted red pepper hummus with toasted pita chips and crispy veggies, a Malibu Beach sustainable fish wrapped in a banana leaf with some yummy side dishes, pasta tossed with wild mushrooms and a roasted pepper cream sauce, a pan-seared albacore tuna with mixed Asian greens, a classic Santa Maria tri-tip steak with oven-roasted tomato salsa, a shrimp flatbread with pesto, and all kinds of other yummy stuff as well. Some of the menu items are carrying over some of the favorites, but for the most part, it is a new menu over there. So we were talking about Halloween a few minutes ago, jumping overseas now. I'm incredibly jealous, once again, as is the case every year, of the overseas Disney parks and the way that they're doing Halloween, particularly of Hong Kong this year, in addition to all the great Halloween festivities that they've had year after year there with the spooky Main Street and haunted houses and other really creative items. They are now adding a sort of a mini electronica to their Halloween offerings this year. There's going to be the Tron City Dance Crew, the electronica program dancers, and even Laserman. Why, oh why, did Hong Kong get electronica and Walt Disney World did not? It could have just come from Disneyland right over here at Orlando, but no. Had to ship it all the way around the world to Hong Kong, and that's very, very disappointing for me. I certainly loved electronica out in California. Would have loved to have seen it out here at Hollywood Studios. Would have been a great nighttime alternative to maybe, the families go to Not So Scary, and then everyone else can go to electronica at Hollywood Studios and have some fun for everybody. No, it's going to Hong Kong instead. Yeah, I'm not bitter. So now let's go to Hawaii, over to Aulani, where some exciting things are happening there as well. There's some new water features on the way. Disney released some concept art of what this will look like in the beautiful resort in Hawaii, themed family pool on the edge of property. It'll have a magical starscape, as they put it, with glimmering lights on the grotto ceiling and on the floor of the pool as well. That sounds pretty nice. There's also going to be a new kids splash zone, a rainbow water jets in there, more menehune, some additional deck space, chairs, cabanas, all that good stuff, and 2 new food service locations. All of that is going to be built and wrapped up by mid-2013, so about a year from now or so, maybe a little bit less than that, and that'll also coincide with the the completion of the rest of the resort as well. Now, this week there was a little bit of controversy swirling around an announcement that was made with an upcoming holiday promotion between Disney and Barneys New York. This 2012 holiday campaign is going to be called Electric Holiday, in which they're basically combining Disney fantasy worlds with the world of fashion, and they're going to do that through a line of Madison Avenue windows with these 3-dimensional electric light show displays. Michael Giacchino is going to be creating an original score for it. In addition, there's going to be a fashion show, a runway show, and sort of the visuals that came out of this. A lot of people are thinking, what in the world are these? They're sort of these bizarre, long-legged, ultra-skinny versions of Disney characters, Minnie Mouse, Daisy Duck, and Goofy, and they're this high-fashion look, and they've made them just super ultra thin, like the thinnest model that you can imagine. As you can also imagine, that has sparked much outcry from those who already think that models are too skinny and that perhaps Disney's characters don't need to be lumped in with that whole world, and why are they drawing them in sort of this bizarre concoction of fashion meets Disney characters? Why didn't they just look like their regular Disney proportions and just put high fashion, fashion on them, clothing, whatever. Anyway, you can certainly search online and see what that is all about if you are interested, and then later this year those window displays will be popping up. In the world of movies, here's something we do occasionally from time to time. I was sent a list of all the Disney movies that'll be coming out for the next 18 months or so, and I'm sure there are some missing from this list here and there, but just to kind of give you an idea of what is coming out, what you can expect at the box office, and kind of looking forward. First up, September 14th is Finding Nemo 3D. October 5th, Frankenweenie. November 2nd, Wreck-It Ralph. December 19th, Monsters, Inc. 3D. That takes us to the end of the year. So 4 fun movies, 2 new and 2 re-release in 3D. Moving on to 2013, you can look forward to Oz the Great and Powerful on March 8th. May 3rd will be Iron Man 3. Then June 21st will be the prequel to Monsters, Inc. Monsters University, followed by July 3rd, The Lone Ranger. And then Phineas and Ferb, the movie, on July 26th. September 13th, a whole year, more than a year from now, The Little Mermaid will be released in 3D. And then Thor, The Dark World, the sequel, will be November 8th of next year. And then all the way November 27th of 2013 will be Frozen. So quite a ways away to look forward to that film. But it's it's fun to look ahead and see what is coming down the pipeline for Disney films. So that'll do it for your news from around the world this week.
It's a zip-a-dip-doo-dah. Tip for today.
And this week's tip was sent in from Steve C. from Long Island, New York. And Steve writes, when we go to Disney on our family trips, which is probably yearly, awesome, we have a Fast Pass runner, me, to get Fast Passes while the others head to an attraction or waiting to sit down or eat or taking a bathroom break. My family can be slow at times, strollers, taking scenic pictures, etc. So I bring everyone's park pass and my dash-like walking speed and the shortcuts I know of and grab Fast Passes for them while they are moseying on over to the next attraction we plan on going to. I meet them up there in line or tell them what I want to eat or drink at the restaurant we're at, and this has shown to save a good amount of time and increases the number of Fast Passes we can get throughout the day. I will go on a Fast Pass run whenever we can get our next pass, though this may be a moot point if they implement those reserve your ride time online systems. Steve, great tip there. In fact, such a good tip that's a big service that is offered if you book one of those, the plaids, the tour guides, the very expensive personal tour guides. They will run and get Fast Passes for you. That's part of what they do. They can't, jump you to the front of the line, but they can sort of organize your day and grab Fast Passes for you anywhere in the park, and they can, run around and do all of that. So for you to do that for your family, just think of yourself as your family's own personal Disney tour guide, which it basically sounds like you are. Definitely a good tip to have somebody do all that Fast Pass legwork, somebody with a lot of energy, leaving everyone else to just sit and relax and have some fun. You could even trade off, perhaps, between different members, and different people can go run and get those as well. And of course, I don't literally mean run. I mean walk quickly, but don't run through the park. That's not what you're supposed to do. Anyway, everyone, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. And now, before we continue with the next section of the show, let me put in a quick word about Theme Park Connection. This is a wonderful business out here in Winter Garden, Florida, about 10-15 minutes north of the Magic Kingdom or so, maybe 20 if you drive really slowly. And when you get there, though, it's absolutely worth no matter how much time it took you to get there, because this store, Theme Park Connection, is a giant warehouse, thousands of square feet full of Disney collectibles. And I'm not talking just the items that are on the store shelves that you can get anywhere, or maybe it was just in the last few years. These are a lot of, it has those, but it also has items that you have never seen or never thought you would see on a store shelf. Props and costumes and signs and things from theme park past that you may have forgotten about or remember from your childhood, and now you can own it at Theme Park Connection. Or if you can't make it there in person, check out their website at themeparkconnection.com. Of course, you can find directions to their store, store hours, all of that information, but also an eBay store where you can sift through hundreds and hundreds of items that they're continuously refreshing each week. And if you're a Disney fan and a Disney collector, you definitely want to check it all out over at themeparkconnection.com.
Here it comes. An Inside the Magic Blu-ray review.
It's been a while since I've done a Blu-ray review here on the show. I've been posting them over on InsideTheMagic.net, and I know I'm sure a lot of you have been reading them there. But what I kind of wanted to do this week is take the most recent 4 Blu-ray reviews that I have received, I've watched, I've enjoyed for the most part, and kind of do a Blu-ray review roundup here on the show. I'm sure a lot of you haven't read the articles over on the website, or maybe if you have, you forgot, or you're just wondering, what's the next Blu-ray I should get? What has come out recently from Disney? Well, I'm going to be talking in brief here about 4 recent releases, as I just said. One is Pocahontas 1 and 2, which were released together most recently, just a week or two ago. So about 15 years after its initial release, Pocahontas, certainly still a great film. Not one of my personal favorites amongst the grand scheme of Disney animation, but any movie that came out of the 90s is just amazing animation, visually stunning. But when you lump it in with, The Lion King and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, it's kind of easy to kind of push Pocahontas over to the side and focus on those. Those are amazing movies. Pocahontas, visually striking, wonderful colors, and looks fantastic in high definition. The story, not my favorite. It's Pocahontas. It's that whole story. But the visuals are just unbelievable. And, of course, Alan Menken being involved in the music. You can't go wrong there. Now, lumping this in with Pocahontas 2, which is the full title, Pocahontas 2, Journey to a New World, clearly a direct-to-DVD DVD kind of release, direct to home video, direct to Blu-ray, whatever. Direct to don't even bother watching, really. Just forget that sequel is in there. If you're going to pick up Pocahontas on Blu-ray, do it for the original. Do it for Pocahontas. If this is one of your favorite Disney films, you absolutely need to get this Blu-ray because it just looks phenomenal. It sounds great. It looks great. High definition really makes this film pop. And what is great is they did include some high definition bonus features on here, which is always nice. I really appreciate it when they don't just recycle old bonus features and that's it. They add some new HD features as well. It is the Blu-ray format, after all. You want that HD. So for this particular release, they sort of emphasized the Little Hiawatha short from years ago, not only including that short as they have on previous DVD releases, but also a new featurette explaining what they're calling the lost story of this tale that inspired the filmmakers of Pocahontas. So anybody who is a big fan of Pocahontas, you're definitely going to want to see that. There's also a great music of Pocahontas extra. This is a bit older. It's in standard definition. Looks a bit old, but it's all about Alan Menken and the songwriters and the lyricists and everybody who worked on this film. Definitely worth checking out there. Again, don't pick it up for Pocahontas 2. Just get it for Pocahontas. Forget the sequel and just enjoy the original, and definitely a solid release there. Another recent Disney Blu-ray release is the Aristocats, and I know I actually reviewed a release of this sometime in the last few years, but it has been a while. The Aristocats, still a very good movie. Again, not one of my absolute favorites. I'm not a big fan of this era of Disney animation, the real rough sketch lines, kind of the same era as Robin Hood and Jungle Book and all of those, sort of around roughly the same time, give or take a few years. But the Aristocats, still very entertaining. Great music. The music of the Aristocats definitely is where it is. Of course, it was Richard and Robert Sherman were involved, and how can you go wrong with them? Just like Alan Menken, you can't go wrong with the Sherman brothers, and that is definitely the best part about the Aristocats is the music. And on this Blu-ray, the movie looks phenomenal. Way better than any other release I've ever seen of this film. The HD transfer, full widescreen, actually has very crisp lines, smooth animation, almost like it was a new movie, and the music just sounds phenomenal as well. And again, like Pocahontas, some new HD features on here emphasizing the music. Richard Sherman comes out on these features, introduces an alternate introduction to the film. It includes a song that never made it very far off the drawing board, and then that's you hear an old recording of him and his brother performing it years ago. There's another really odd bonus feature of sort of a modern remix of the movie's music. Can't say I'm a big fan of that, but it was in HD, so it was all right. There's a lot of old bonus features on there as well, but really the movie itself looks fantastic, and of course anything with the Sherman brothers always a great thing to pick up there. So there's Blu-ray review number 2 for this week. Here comes number 3. This one can't say as many nice things about. Home on the Range. This was a movie that came out in 2004. I had never actually seen it until getting a hold of this Blu-ray. I've heard awful things about this film, and because of that, I went in with very, very low expectations, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it was still pretty bad. This is a film that was essentially the end of the line when it came to traditional 2D hand-drawn animation in Disney, which was a very sad time. They were moving into the animation studios with Chicken Little and CG movies like that that followed, and they just didn't have the same heart. It took quite a while for Disney to really get up to speed with the CG animation. Finally, when they hit Tangled, it was definitely very much back on track. Tangled is a fantastic movie. Prior to that, it was hard to get there. Meet the Robinsons was kind of borderline, but everything after or before that was And Home on the Range was really sort of that teeter-totter moment where it was 2D animation. Well, we're getting rid of you, but we don't really have a good reason. So couple that with Roseanne Barr offering the lead voice on this film and being quite crass. A lot of really rude humor in this movie. Doesn't feel like Disney at all, and I don't mind that kind of stuff normally. Give me an R-rated film and I'm fine with it, but give me a Disney animated movie and I don't need to hear burp jokes for the first 10 minutes of the film, and that's exactly what you get with Home on the Range. Fortunately, once again, Alan Menken was involved here, and his music, once again, is the saving grace, along with the villain of this film, the yodeling villain. Very unique. I kind of liked him. If there was anything I liked about Home on the Range, it would be the villain. The rest of the characters, not so much. The bonus features were amusing. They were definitely a variety of them that were older features. They didn't even bother to put any new ones on here. They're all standard definition, but I had never seen them before. It was kind of interesting to see their Yodelmentary, which is a documentary about yodeling, and you know, I learned a little bit about yodeling, I suppose. But for the most part, very much a mediocre film at best. Kind of reminded me of some old Looney Tunes shorts, but not nearly as good. So, not sure I would recommend rushing out to get Home on the Range, unless you've never seen it. You know, I guess maybe worth picking up. One more Blu-ray review this week, Treasure Planet. Now, this is a film that has just reached its 10th anniversary, but watching it today, now I had seen this years and years ago, and it was all right. I didn't dislike it. I didn't really like it. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I actually saw it in theaters 10 years ago. Now watching it feels very, very 90s, from the dated computer graphics, the art style, and especially the soundtrack with the guy from Goo Goo Dolls singing some songs in there. Just feels 90s. It has 90s written all over it. I'm a big fan of the 90s. I grew up partially in the 90s, and really a lot of my favorite music in the world are from the 90s, but the Goo Goo Dolls, not one of my favorite bands, and so not really thrilled with Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet, of course, is taken from, based on Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, but set in this sci-fi world with space pirates and aliens and laser guns and all that kind of stuff, and surprisingly, John Musker and Ron Clements directed this film. They directed The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, and the connection there is just lost a little bit. Those movies are such classic Disney films, and for them to go from that to this, it just doesn't quite click for me that the same people were involved. Treasure Planet is not a bad movie, but it has these moments where you're just like, that's so not good. Especially the robot voiced by Martin Short, which just yanks you out of the film and you want him to just go away. So anyway, Treasure Planet Blu-ray. I know there are many people who are just going to hate everything I just said because they love this film, and I can understand why. It is a good movie. I can see you really liking it, especially if you grew up with it. For me, not so much. No new bonus features on this one, all old ones as well. Don't completely ignore it if you've never seen it. Probably worth picking up just to see it, but kind of, it's certainly better than Home on the Range, but not as good as the Aristocats or Pocahontas. So there you go. I think I posted one more Blu-ray review that I'm not going to include here. Rescuers and the Rescuers Down Under was a pair, and if you want to find out my thoughts on that film, other than to say good, the villain from the Rescuers is out of her mind. Go check that out over on InsideTheMagic.net to read that and many other Blu-ray reviews as well. Just search Blu-ray on there, and you'll find them all. And now, before we jump into this week's listener feedback, of which I have a whole bunch, even though I did tons last week, I still got a bunch more. But anyway, let me put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you got a business to promote, or maybe you're going to a convention where you need to hand out promotional items, or just every day around a school or a church or an organization, you need to wear name tags or IDs around your neck, making custom lanyards is a great way to do that. And you can do that over at lanyardlab.com. Once you're there, click on anywhere that says get a quote, and you can just fill in all your information. Send your text, your colors, your graphics, whatever it is, send it on over to us, and we'll put it all together into a neat little package, send you your price code along with a proof showing you what the lanyards will look like. And once you've seen all that, if you're happy with it, you just purchase it online, or you just respond and say, hey, I've got a few changes, want to tweak this and that. All of that is free to preview. There's no obligation whatsoever. So go check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com.
Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
And we are approaching the end of the show here, of course, and it is the listener feedback, but it's not really the end of the show because I've got so much listener feedback to get to. Last week I shared certainly plenty of it, and because I shared so much last week, I got a lot of really great responses to everything I shared last week as well. So let's just jump right into that. We've been talking a bit at length about the concept of sort of Disney not embodying all that was Walt Disney from years ago and kind of going off in this new direction lately. Well, I had plenty many of you respond to that. I'm going to share a few of those emails now. Joseph from St. Paul wrote in and said, I'm watching your show right now, and you're responding to listener emails, and there were a couple of emails that expressed concern over Disney's recent partnerships and agreements with Marvel and Avatar and Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and Muppets, and other present-day popular film and television titles. Let's not forget that some, actually most, of the classic Disney characters originated outside the Disney studios. Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Pinocchio, Bambi, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, etc. were all taken from classic books. They did not originate with the Disney folks. The Pixar characters are Pixar characters, and yet they all feel part of the Disney family, don't you think? So I suggest just relax and enjoy the influx of new amazing characters and attractions that are coming. Disney will do amazing things to make these new characters and attractions become part of the Disney magic too. Joseph, excellent points there. Before I respond directly, let me read the next email on the subject. Steve writes in and says, I was lucky enough to be a cast member at Disneyland in 1966, and before Walt got sick, he used to spend Sunday mornings in the employee cafeteria talking to cast members before the park opened. One thing that I really remember was Walt was always looking for new ideas. He wanted to change the world and was not content with what he had already done. I think the Disney company is really attempting to continue Walt's legacy while also honoring him. I think he would be pleased at all the different attempts to change, whether they were successful or not. That was Walt. Some excellent points that certainly can't be argued with there as well. Continuing to the next email, David writes in and says, Ricky, I agree with you about Disney changing, but I have these thoughts. First, Disney is forgetting about Walt. He has become a piece of merchandise and a marketing tool, not a spirit that should permeate the company he founded. For the most part, the animation has suffered. Details missed. The detail in The Princess and the Frog was refreshing to see after many years of misses, and while Disney Channel, XD, etc., is popular with a certain age group, they miss all the others. The old Disney Channel made a point of programming for kids and adults. You could introduce people to the classics and still go to the networks all the time. Cars Land should have had a special. The Disneyland 50th anniversary should have had one too. Missed opportunities. I hope they keep Marvel stuff to a minimum. They did not build Marvel, so it does not fit in most situations. They built Disney icons. Look at Power Rangers. They tried to force feed them, and where are they now? Gone. Yes, you can put them in Hollywood studios, but the motif for them is the 30s and 40s, not the Marvel era, which is the 50s and up. So really interesting additions there. One more email on the subject before I kind of give my additional thoughts. Faye wrote in and said, in light of recent discussions about the current direction of the Disney Channel, I think they should make a second channel, call it something like Disney Channel Legacy, and just play all the old classic Disney stuff like Mickey Mouse Club, Donald Duck Presents, Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color, and other classic Disney shows and movies, rather like how MTV created MTV2 in the 90s once the original MTV had all but moved away, actually playing music videos. Perhaps the next time you talk to some fancy Disney people, you could suggest it. Well, Faye, excellent suggestion there. And anybody listening out there, if you happen to be like a Disney Channel programmer or something like that, or yeah, go ahead, take that idea, run with it, and make another Disney Channel. You've already got XD and Junior and ABC and ESPN. You've got plenty of television networks. Well, what's one more for you to add and play all those old shows? I certainly would enjoy it. I'm sure most people tuning into the show would enjoy it as well. Moving back to the other emails, however, definitely, great conflicting points there. It's hard to take a side on this issue, the direction Disney's going, and not everyone's going to be happy with it. But it is true that Walt did always embrace change, and in fact encourage change. He never wanted Disneyland to be complete. He always wanted to try new things. It didn't always succeed, and but you don't know unless you try. Marvel has been huge at the box office. Whether it would work in the parks and whether Disney fans will embrace it or not, who knows? But the general public certainly loves Marvel, and eventually I think that connection will be made to the Disney name if they push it hard enough and really integrate it properly. With that said, I'm not thrilled about the Disney Channel and not being able to tune in there at all because the audience is completely different than me and many adults, most adults, in fact. Although I did like Phil of the Future. I always enjoyed that show, and of course they yanked that off the air. So hard topic to decide on a firm answer for here. It's more of just a kind of put your trust into the Disney company. Maybe not everything is to your liking, but chances are something will be to your liking. Really, that's Disney's kind of goal, is to reach everybody with something, not necessarily everything for everybody, but something for everybody. So I think they're doing a pretty good job at that, at least. Kind of on the same lines here, Catherine wrote in and says, I was out with a group of people at Cars Land again, and someone mentioned something that seemed a bit shocking. Mater is the second most used character currently in the Disney universe after Mickey. It sounded crazy since Mater is far from being a universally loved character, but as we discussed then, based on overall visibility, it does seem like Lasseter really is trying to push Mater as the new face of Disney, or at least a new face of Disney. Junkyard Jamboree, numerous songs from the soundtrack, MC and final character of Pixar Play Parade, meet and greet at Sally's, several appearances and most used character within Radiator Springs Racers, time travel Mater movie at Blue Sky Cellar, Art of Animation Hotel, both Inside and Out, 2 full-length movies, numerous shorts with more on the way, rumored Cars Land in Florida. I'm sure you can probably find a few more characters more widely used in the Disney universe, but I'm still curious what you think. Is it Mater overkill? Catherine, I don't think we've quite reached Mater overkill yet, but yeah, it's getting pretty close. Cars, hugely popular. Cars Land, fantastic. I never felt a Mater overload in Cars Land, but when you put it like that and you look at all the grand scheme of Mater, there's a lot of Mater, and yeah, it's probably more than Mickey Mouse at this point. I can't imagine anyone ever saying it all started with a tow truck, but it's definitely moving in that direction. Mater's very popular, Cars is very popular, and I can't say that Lasseter is necessarily behind every bit of it, but it's certainly his creation. Cars is his baby, and I'm sure he's more than pleased to see Mater and all the other characters wherever he can. Certainly an interesting observation. Moving on to some more less thought-provoking emails. Tracy writes in and says, I'm traveling down to Walt Disney World for the Tower of Terror 10-miler in September. We will be arriving on Thursday, September 27th, and I was thinking of trying to go to Epcot that day. Is there any chance the Food and Wine Festival may have a soft opening on Thursday? I know it opens on Friday, but I'm really trying to avoid the opening weekend 30th anniversary crowds. Tracy, and I emailed you this as well, but I definitely thought I would share this for everybody out there. Yes, traditionally, the day before the Food and Wine Festival opens at Epcot, there's sort of a preview day. It's unannounced. It's sort of kind of for cast members, but anybody who's in the park that day can go up to the various kiosks around the World Showcase and sample the food. Now, there's no guarantees everything's going to be perfect. The service might be slow. The recipes might still be tweaked from that point forward. In fact, throughout the festival, things do get tweaked. So going on that preview day, just keep in mind that if you taste something and it's gross, or you have to wait in a really long line, or something's not quite smooth, don't get frustrated or complain. It is not official at that point. But yes, generally, and it's not guaranteed, but generally the day before Food and Wine Festival opens, they have that preview day. Joe writes in and says, I was reading a few pages in the Secrets of Walt Disney World book and came across a hidden telephone in the general store on Main Street that you can pick it up and people talk to you. Can you tell me how to find it in the store? Joe, you're gonna look for a telephone and you're gonna pick it up. Okay. You know what? I don't remember exactly. Yes, there are sort of fun little hidden things throughout the parks. If you see something that's not, behind a desk or behind a door or something, if it's out in the public and it looks like something you can push a button or pick up and talk to, of course, telephone in Tomorrowland and things like that, go for it. Give it a shot and keep your ears open and your eyes open, and you will really get sort of fun little surprises around the parks. You don't want to spoil all of them by reading about them online. Just kind of keep your eyes and ears open as you're walking through, and you never know what you're going to find like that. Joey writes in and says, I was fascinated by all the Cars ideas for Walt Disney, and I was wondering, have you ever thought of what kind of a car you would be? Also, do you think it's possible for Glow with the Show ears to come to Walt Disney World? Joey, to answer your second question, sure, Glow with the Show could come to Walt Disney World, but I have not heard anything specifically like that. As far as what kind of a car I would be, that is a tough question because I am not a car person at all, so I don't have this vast knowledge of all the cars that could possibly represent my personality and who I am. I know what kind of cars I like. I like cars with 4 wheels, an engine, and they move when I push the little pedal thingy, and yeah. That's pretty much it. Good stereo would be nice. So I think I just described almost every car out there, if it's comfortable. And I'm just not a big car person. So if anyone out there might think that you know what kind of a car I might be, not to bring this topic up all over again, but could be fun for you to let me know. I'd like to think I would be a time-traveling DeLorean, but I don't really see how that has anything to do with me. That's just me being a Back to the Future fan. But anyway, we'll just throw that out there. Dave writes in and says, I will be coming from the UK to Orlando in September, and I have a ticket to Halloween Horror Nights on the first opening night of September 21st. Is the first night usually busy, and is it best to arrive early or later? I'm not sure if it's worth purchasing an express pass. Dave, great question. I am always there on the opening night because it is media night. As a result of it being media night and opening night, yes, expect big crowds. It's going to have a lot of media everywhere, a lot of cameras running around, and the media all gets escorted to the front of the line and has reserved areas and this and that, so you might run into a little bit of that here and there. I always recommend getting the express pass for Halloween Horror Nights for the best time, because you very well may find yourself spending so much time in line that you miss things. Halloween Horror Nights is incredibly popular almost every single night, and while that first night may not be as popular as moving on closer and closer to Halloween, it's still going to be very crowded. If you show up early, you can knock out a few houses during the daytime hours, but I don't really think that's that much fun. I like going after dark, experiencing all the full scares that way. There's no light leakage in the houses that way, which sometimes there is during the day. And, I would just recommend getting the express passes, going right at sunset, and have a good time. You're pretty much guaranteed to get in all the houses that way. You can linger in the streets, see the shows, and not have to worry about it. I know it's expensive, but in my opinion, it's the best way to do it and worth every penny. Nikki writes in, this is a great email. If you remember, we had Maggie on the show a few times, and she talked about Kingdom Keepers once. She'll be back to talk about other things soon. But anyway, Nikki writes, always a big fan of the show, listen every week. This isn't any kind of a tip or question, but it's a thank you. Maggie had discussed Kingdom Keepers months ago on your show, and it wasn't until June that I decided to pick up the first book. Normally, time to read is very scarce to me, but any chance I get to indulge in something Disney-related is a chance I won't pass up. I just recently picked up Volume 5 after spending the last 3 months reading the other 4, and I am absolutely hooked. I know it's for young adult readers, and sometimes I have to keep that in mind while reading, but wow, I really love this series. I'm really looking forward to the last 2 books. I can barely put them down, and I am sad when they're done. I will say, now, thanks to those books, I'm a little weary of A Small World and Maelstrom, but it won't stop me from writing them. If you're a big Disney fan and enjoy the fantasy-like stories involving the parks, this is definitely a series to get into. I'm a big kid at heart, so reading this just helps that feeling grow. I really want to thank Maggie for her review, because she is the reason that I started reading, and I am very grateful. I hope if there are more books like this, to hear about them on your show. Nikki, thanks very much for that email. Always great to hear that something that we do here not only helps you sort of do something, but also enjoy whatever that is that you have done. And so I'm glad, I haven't read the Kingdom Keeper series, but after hearing you rave about it, and after hearing Maggie rave about it, may have to find some time to enjoy that. So anyway, let's give my voice a rest here for a minute, and let's go over to a voice message from Chris.
Hi, Ricky. My name is Chris. I'm from Tucson, Arizona, and I am planning on going with the family to Disneyland in December. My question to you for your Inside the Magic show would be, at about what time in December do the Christmas festivities start at Disneyland? That would just be really helpful so we don't go too early. We're planning on going probably from the 14th, maybe to the 21st for a week, or, we didn't really know. So all we wanted to do was just ask to see, what time it started, and hopefully you can get back on to me on this question. Thanks, Ricky.
Well, thanks very much for calling that in. And, Christmas time is a great time to go to Disneyland. You'll love the decorations there. However, you do want to go at the right time to be able to enjoy it fully. You don't want to go too early because then all the decorations aren't up. But if you go too close to Christmas, it's going to be very, very crowded. My recommendation is always the first couple of weeks of December. You're guaranteed to have all the Christmas decorations up then, and you won't hit the Christmas week crowds. Now, I'm kind of speaking for Walt Disney World here. I'm not as familiar with the crowd dynamics with the locals and pass holders and all of that for Disneyland, but I'm kind of assuming that sort of the same tourist patterns would exist for that as well. First couple of weeks of December would probably be an excellent time to go. Maybe even the last week of November, right after the Thanksgiving crowds have left. Probably a good time there. Also, you should be aware of the expanded Candlelight Processional this year. There's going to be 20 nights of that, so the park sort of closing times each day is going to be vary depending on whether or not you're going to be able to get into that. Definitely something to be aware of. So, if you go sort of mid-November is when you'll, maybe even early November is when you'll start to see Christmas decorations showing up. But if you go in early December, that is my recommendation. If you get close to Christmas, be prepared for a lot of people being there. Next email, a rather long one about a subject that I don't know much about, and I admitted that, I think, last week. Kirsten writes in and says, I'm writing in response to the email you read on last week's show regarding the Disney dining plan. Depending on who is in the traveling party and what sort of dining they want, it can be a good thing. I don't always think it's the best option, but when we are traveling with our kids and want to eat at some of the more expensive places, we find that the dining plan is a better option. It takes a bit of planning to eat at those places anyway, since you need reservations, so you might as well save a few bucks. Travelers should know that the meals are pooled to your entire party, not to a particular person. My kids will often prefer something classified as a snack for breakfast or lunch, so they may use one of my snacks, and my husband and I may use one of their quick-serve meals. It takes a few minutes of extra planning, but before we even get to Florida, I have an idea of which days we're going to use how many of each of the snacks and quick service and sit-down dining options. So a bit of advice I have to people planning is to use one of the Disney dining plans. Don't use all your sit-down meals for breakfast unless your objective is to meet specific characters. We've been to several of the character breakfasts. Princess breakfast at Cursus. I can never pronounce that right. Anyway, at Epcot, at Donald breakfast and Animal Kingdom come to mind first, and I don't personally feel the food is worth the value attached to the sit-down meal voucher. It was great to get my kids' picture with the characters, but now that our autograph books are full, we're going to save those sit-down meals for the more expensive dining experiences. To wrap it up, Disney Dining Plan has given my family the opportunity to experience some of the more pricey dining options that we otherwise would not have been able to afford. So good tips there, Kirsten. As I said, I'm not particularly familiar with the dining plan. I don't really need it, but it sounds like for the right people who want the right certain types of experiences, it may apply very, very well and be helpful. Next email from Helen and Danielle from the UK wrote in and said, love this week's show. Great to hear all the listener feedback and your take on things. We're in Orlando from October 29th for our honeymoon and for 3 whole weeks. So we would love a mention on the show as we listen every week. Well, there you go. Anyway, quick question. Unfortunately, we leave on November 19th, so we're missing the opening of Fantasyland. Do you think the area will be open before to walk around? Most likely. I can't imagine they're going to drop the walls right on November 19th. I bet they're going to roll it out little by little by little in the weeks coming up to that. Now, don't hold me to that. It's possible they will literally pull down the walls overnight, but I doubt it. They'll probably, sneak a few people in here and there, open up a ride, open up a restaurant for sneak previews here. You just have to be there at the right place and the right time or the right day. Stay on Twitter, stay on Facebook, watch for updates, and I'm sure people will be let in here and there throughout November, and you'll probably at least get to experience 1 or 2 things in New Fantasyland. So congrats, and have fun on your trip. Brian writes in, says, I'm just a couple of weeks away from my next trip to Disneyland. We'll be there for 6 days and 5 nights and plan to use all 6 days in the parks. However, Disneyland has recently changed their policies regarding 5-day tickets. Until recently, guests with 5-day passes have been able to add extra days for their passes for a small price, $5 to $15, depending on the number of days you've already paid for. It was a simple upgrade, but in recent weeks, cast members have been ordered to no longer allow the addition of extra days to 5-day park hoppers. I thought your other listeners who might be planning a future Disneyland trip might like to know about this new policy. Brian, thanks very much for that email. I had no idea that was the case, but if it is, certainly good to know to plan accordingly. Just a few more emails here before we wrap this up. Chelsea writes in and says, I love your podcast. Always tune in to listen to the latest podcasts and also a couple of the old ones. Thankfully, my family is visiting, or planning a trip, rather, to Disneyland in the second week of December. We have had a chance to see the lovely holiday-decorated Disneyland park, but I'm wondering if California Adventure will be decorated at all. Our son is a huge Cars fan, so I think we will just visit California Adventure. My question is, should we expect a pretty crowded park that weekend? So Chelsea, let's see, you said December, second weekend of December. Well, as I was just saying a little while ago, shouldn't be horrible. Yes, it'll be crowded. Disneyland's always crowded, especially Cars Land now that it's new. But it's not going to be deadly quite yet, second week of December. The following weekend, yeah, it'll probably be pretty packed. But Cars Land and Buena Vista Street and all that stuff, we don't know what the holiday decorations will be there quite yet. They did decorate Buena Vista Street for something recently after it opened. I guess it was July 4th. And so it's likely that they will do some sort of decorations to the holidays, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Robert writes in and says, I was supposed to vacation with my girlfriend to Disneyland this August, but an unfortunate few events prevented that from happening, so this, of course, would not stop me from planning another. I always wondered what it would be like to go to the parks with just me and the cast members there. Do you know if there's a holiday or time of year there are fewer people to be expected? I was thinking Super Bowl or something like that. I know rainy days are known to scare off vacationers. Robert, good question there. When is the time of year you're going to find the least people there? And that is tough to do at Disneyland, as I've said a few times in the show already. With all the locals, all the pass holders, it's almost always crowded at Disneyland. But if there is ever a time to find less people, you're going to work around that school calendar. Go when kids are in school. Go right after Christmas break, mid-January. Go when spring break's not out. Go when any kind of break, summer, etc., Thanksgiving. Go when there's no kids that are getting out of school. Of course, there will always be kids there. There will always be parents pulling their kids out for special vacations, but not nearly as many. And that's kind of the schedule you should work around. That and national holidays. Avoid national holiday weekends. If you can skip all that, just go through a normal week, school week. You'll find a lot less people there. Next email from Clayton writes, let's see, do you know what are great times for lunch and dinner in the parks to avoid the hungry rush at Disneyland? Also, where can I go to get a coffee at Disneyland in the morning? Well, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm the wrong person to ask about that. I'm sure one of those wonderful new places on Main Street, USA, they've recently renovated a lot of that, has some coffee. Don't hold me to that, though, because I'm not a coffee drinker. But to avoid the lunch rush and the dinner rush, you're going to want to avoid sort of the 1 o'clock sort of time period for lunch, and don't go to 6 or 7 o'clock at dinner. Go before, between, after all of that. Have a late lunch, 2, 3 o'clock. Have a late dinner, 8, 9 o'clock, something like that. That's kind of my schedule anyway, and I always, I'm able to avoid those crowds pretty easily. I know I said just a few more emails, and now I really mean it. I have 4 emails left to read, so let's get through those here. Adam writes, I'd like to say what a fantastic podcast you create each week without fail. Living in the UK, it's hard to fulfill my all things Disney addiction, but your podcast and website is the perfect way to pass the hard time between trips. Anyway, my question, me and my parents managed to make a trip to Walt Disney World every 2 years and only stay for 2 weeks. Anyway, these 2 weeks are without fail the best 2 weeks of that whole 2-year period. But every time we come to leave, I want to stay for longer. So I'm considering possibly taking a year out of my higher education to come to Florida for a year and work at Walt Disney World, preferably at the UK Pavilion at Epcot. So my question to you is, what steps would you recommend for someone wanting to start a career at Disney? Well, Adam, you are in luck being from another country. You can apply for the international program. Whether or not you'll get in, that's a whole other story. I can't guarantee that, but you could certainly apply, try to become a rep for that UK Pavilion, being from the UK. That is a great way to do it. Of course, when it ends, it'll be on your own to sort of stay and deal with if you really want to start a career there, you're going to have to deal with, of course, the visas and the, work permits or whatever to work in this country. But, and of course, maybe reapply or apply internally for other jobs at Disney, et cetera, et cetera. But, or you could just stay at the UK Pavilion, perhaps. But definitely that's the avenue I would recommend approaching first. Look for that international program, the guidelines for that, see if you fit into all of that and go that direction, because that's where you want to work anyway, is the UK. And that's how they get their cast members for there. Next up, an email from Anne, and Anne writes, I just lost it, there it is. Anne writes, you talked about walking around the resorts at Walt Disney World at night, which is a great idea. Oh, she's responding to romantic ideas for Disney, I believe. She says, I would like to add to that, if you go to the boardwalk and yacht and beach clubs, you can watch the fireworks at the end of illuminations. There's a beach and a lot of fun on the boardwalk. So good tip there, Anne. I always sort of forget about the boardwalk. It is a great place to walk around, and yeah, you can catch a glimpse of those fireworks. Next up, an email from Nate, who writes, number one, this is a two-parter. Number one, about possible expansion in the Pixar place at Disney's Hollywood Studios. The studios isn't what it used to be, and if an expansion were to happen, the only place I see it fit is a studio backlot tour. Back in the 90s when I went as a kid, it was a working studio with the houses and the long ride through it, and now it's a shadow of what it used to be, and you take a look at the area the tour goes through. I think it's a big enough area to possibly expand Cars Main Street or a different Pixar movie like Monsters, Inc., or perhaps replacing the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids play area and making it a Finding Nemo Coral Reef play area. The backlot area would be great to include popular Pixar films and keep the Hollywood theme. Number 2, with the Little Mermaid attraction opening, again referring to my childhood in the 90s, a ride that was in the now Little Mermaid at Walt Disney World is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea attraction and is using the same dark ride building. It seems when overlaid old and new air photos, I am really hoping for an Easter egg, a nod to the old attraction will be present in the ride somewhere, like a nautilus or a squid. Nate, to answer your second one first, there already has been released an image of a nod to the Nautilus. You're going to look in the rock work for the queue for the Little Mermaid ride, and you will find a nod to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And that's not to say it's going to be the only one, but that one will definitely be there. And as far as your number 1, we talked about that a little while ago. As the rumor is that perhaps Lights, Motors, Action will disappear in part or all of the backlot tour. Maybe Cars Land, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. And final email. I saved what is either the best or absolutely the worst email for the last one here. Charlie wrote in, and this is in response to a question, I think it was last week, where I was asked if I was able to take part in the make-your-own princess figurine, the D-Tech Me technology, where I could, girls put their face onto a Disney princess. If I could do it, what princess would I be? And I said I would be Ariel, the Little Mermaid, just because I enjoy The Little Mermaid. It's a great movie. Well, Charlie took it upon himself to draw me as the Little Mermaid, as Ariel. Those of you watching the video version of the show are looking at that drawing right now, and I apologize if you have been traumatized for life. It's not quite a custom figurine, but good golly, it is frightening. So apparently that's what I would look at like in some sort of crazy form as a mermaid. Yeah, so Charlie, thanks very much for that. All of you listening to the audio podcast, I'm sure you're curious now. Head to YouTube and check out the video version of the show about an hour and 9 minutes or so into the show, and you will see the frightening mess that is me as Ariel, courtesy of Charlie. So anyway, that'll do it for listener feedback this week. And that about wraps up show 387 of Inside the Magic. Hopefully you enjoyed my sort of run-through of recent Blu-ray reviews. You can read more over at InsideTheMagic.net, but it's been a while since I've talked about them here on the show, so I figured I would throw that in there as well. Of course, in the coming weeks, as I very much alluded to earlier, lots and lots of Halloween coming up. And for those of you who are not as big of a fan of Halloween as I am, too bad. Halloween is awesome. It is my favorite holiday. It is my favorite time of the year. It is my favorite time in the parks, and I will certainly be including as much of it on this show as possible. And that's not to say it's going to be every single week, because there's a lot more coming up as well. We've got the Little Mermaid Wing of Art of Animation coming up as well. Happy to talk about that. Some other surprises that I can't quite reveal yet. Some other events. And, of course, new Fantasyland on the horizon. So lots of that's going to be lumped in as well. But, yeah, Halloween will be in there, too. So really, really looking forward to that. I think, I'll be at Not So Scary in like a week and a half or something. So we'll have something from that and much, much more coming up. Last quarter of the year, always my favorite time. Really looking forward to it. Anyway, so I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. Also, check out themeparkconnection.com. There you'll find all kinds of great, wonderful Disney collectibles, things you could have bought in the stores years ago and things you never would have been able to buy in the stores that only they got their hands on, and you can now purchase or at least go to their store and check it out in person. Also visit us over at lanyardlab.com to see all of the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available. You can, of course, request a price quote today to receive a free digital preview of your lanyard design. And visit us over at InsideTheMagic.net. It is your source for Disney and theme park news. You can find all of our show notes for each week's podcast, links, background music listings, all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and so much more. Of course, links to follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. We have millions of views on YouTube and hundreds of videos and lots of subscribers, thousands of subscribers. So check that out if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel already. And so there it is. I do want to thank all of you for listening and for watching this show each and every week. It's always a pleasure to bring Inside the Magic to you. So Have a magical week. Bye.
Every day, there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, just a dream away.